This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian, and Mr. Betcher's back in my seat, co-seat with with Breaking Down Security. Welcome back, Mr. Betcher.
Oh yeah,
nice. Now, where were you last week?
Oh yeah, I had a sporting event that I needed to take my kids to. So they were actually playing in it. So yeah,
well, that's cool. No, I told you, I gave you dispensation. I know we got priorities here, and the
podcast. In my contract.
That's right. You get at least one unexcused absence every year, so that's cool. So, it was good. I'm sorry we couldn't schedule around your family thing because Mr. Johnson's hard to nail down sometimes. He's a busy man. He's speaking everywhere, and Nick was Nick had some scheduling things too. So I wanted to make sure that everybody got involved. So. Actually, we made somebody else angry because we didn't invite him on, even though I'll apologize to him later at DerbyCon. But yeah, I thought the MSSP was a good talk. Mr. Betcher, did you have time to listen to it?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good.
Yeah.
I like the ideas that came out of it, and it's just good to hear people debating the issue, telling their story. You guys didn't drop any names. That was good. We don't want to have to hire any lawyers or whatnot, but it went well. And I think everybody needs to know what they're getting into, and maybe, and there was some good advice on what to do when you're in that situation and you don't really have anybody that has the background or the knowledge necessary to make a good decision. Hey, hire an expert for a few hours, a consultant to come in and see what they have to say and help you make the right decision.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. And I was trying to find out more information about who the MSSP might have been. And I mentioned, the show at work and some of the stuff and Nick's blog, and I got a few answers back, but one guy said, and I thought it was quite knowledgeable, was like, you never really know your MSSP until you actually have to roll an emergency with them. Then you find out what they're truly like and what they're all about. So I thought that was quite an interesting point of view and an interesting thought that I wanted to put out there. So I definitely want to have Nick and or Mr. Johnson back on again to discuss web application stuff. But that was something that we all felt really passionate about. So. We had another interview this week. Somebody reached out to us and said, "Hey, I've got a cool O-Day that dropped on full disclosure," and I was like, "Hey, let's do a show about that." And he was actually available. He goes by the handle of B1ack0wl, and I'd like to welcome him to the show today.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, thanks, man. So. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got your start in information security, a little bit about what you do for a living, maybe some of your skills and, your cool hacking stunts and stuff like that.
All right. Yeah, sure. So as you just said, I'm B1ack0wl. Let's hear a little bit about myself, like you said. Man, I don't know where to start. I guess I'll just start where how I got into information security. I actually got started when I was a teenager, to be honest. The reason I got into it is because I was about 13 years old, and I went on my PC, and all of a sudden my screen went black, and all this green text started showing up. And I was like, I didn't download any Matrix like screensavers. What's going on? Mm-hmm. And long story short was someone social engineered me to download the Sub 7 Trojan, and I ran it on my machine. Mind you, I'm 13, right? Mm-hmm. So I started typing back because the fellow was like, is anybody there? So I started typing back. I'm like, this is really cool. I'm like, how did you do this? And the guy was like, are you a cop or anything? I'm like, no, I'm just some 13-year-old like kid. So after some like talking back and forth, he actually started, showing me some things, and got into trouble when I was 14. But that's a different story. But I actually fell out of it for a while because networking and computer communications was more interesting to me. So I fell out of it for a while, and around 2011, HP bought 3Com, and I was working for Hewlett Packard at the time, and they had a division called Tipping Point, and Tipping Point does all the security stuff, and my 14-year-old and myself started just screaming, like, get back into this, like, this is where your passion is. Because to be honest, network engineering, I did that for a while. It was just there was no challenge into it anymore. It just seemed kind of the same things every day. So I actually interviewed at first with the DV Labs group. But the thing was, I was super green. Like, this was years, like 10 years or even more since I've been touched, like, security stuff. So I got straight up, like, I failed the test. Like, one question that I still cringe at is, tell me the difference between a stack and a heap. And I couldn't even answer that. Or what's a buffer overflow? And I was like, I don't know, a buffer that overflows. Like, it was super bad. This was really bad. So I knew I bombed it pretty hard. So I messaged them and I'm like, I'm not expecting an offer, but, I really would like to grow in this field. And I got a rejection letter as a response. And that really upset me. So I said, you know what? Screw this person. I am totally going to learn this stuff and I'm going to show him. So I used to do war games as a child. And so I just Googled war games and I found Smash the Stack, which is now Net Garage. And I just did that every night, every day. Like, I got up to level 20, 22, I believe it was, before I stopped. But it was just every day for about a year straight. I would just sit down after work and just put on my headphones and just do that. And I forced myself to learn assembly. From assembly, I learned C. From C, I went to C++. And now I just do everything in Python because I'm lazy. Yeah. But it was kind of a journey, man. It's been kind of fun, smooth sailing. But it all just started when I was a teenager, and then when I got rejected, as an adult, it just kind of triggered something, and now I've just been, just doing my thing.
Very cool.
So yeah.
Very nice. So you're currently fun employed, from what you told us before, but you're going to be going back to work very soon. As soon as people found out you were no longer with your old position, they reached out to you. So it's nice to have a vacation before you go back to work.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I've been to a lot of conferences this year, and that's how I met a lot of these great people. I've expanded my network just by meeting folks and also doing capture the flag tournaments, like just participating in those. Whether I come in top 3 or not, it's always great to meet the people who are doing this stuff and competing with you. So that's how a majority of my network grew. Was literally here in Austin. We have some great hacker related groups, you can say, or infosec, whatever you want to call it. Like, we have AHA, which is the Austin Hackers Association, or whatever you want to call the last A. We can never decide. And then we have the 2600 group here in Austin, and then we also have the lockpicking. It's called the Longhorn Lockpick Village. That happens every other Saturday. So we have a really strong security presence here, and just participating in those groups, you meet a lot of great people, a lot of like-minded folks. So I guess that's also why I love this field, is because everyone's on the same page. But they're all real nice and easy to get along with.
Very cool. So you've been busy. We had you on to talk about some O-Day that you dropped that is actually still O-Day in the wild. Maybe you could it has to do with Belkin routers, which,
yes,
no surprise, embedded firmware is the new hotness with regards to finding vulnerabilities, because it's not patched normally, and most people just set it and forget it in their houses, and there's millions of these things sitting around, and they're easy to hack. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you found this vulnerability, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. A little bit of background was what triggered all this was when I was working for DV Labs. I had a coworker who goes by Hello Zeke. He actually found a really nasty vulnerability in his router. I forgot if it was TP-Link or TrendNet. I forgot exactly the manufacturer, but it doesn't matter. It was actual Realtek, the manufacturer of the chip themselves, that had the issue. So he showed me how easy it was for him to find this vuln. He literally wrote a dumb fuzzer in 5 minutes and found this nasty, nasty vuln. So that kind of triggered something in my head. I was like, well, I have all these routers and all this, network equipment in my closet. What can I find, right? Mm-hmm. So I did exactly what my coworker did. I made a dumb fuzzer, but I found absolutely nothing. And that really upset me. So I come from an x86 64 like assembly background where I started, right? So this device was MIPS. And so in my talks, I show how I taught myself MIPS, even like the blogs I've done on Praetorian's website. It's the exact process of how I teach myself new architectures. But so I was like, all right, let's just take this thing apart. I started researching, found this guy named Craig, or Dev TTYS0. His blog is amazing. He has a YouTube channel now that has phenomenal information. I love him. Like, he's great. So I started reading his blog a lot, and he had this tool called B1ack. And so I started looking into it. It's basically just, being able to extract binary images based on magic bytes. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I downloaded the firmware to I just picked a random device. I was like, let's pick this Belkin repeater, right? So I just picked it up. And so I just said, you are my target right now. And so I downloaded the firmware, extracted it, and I looked at the Belkin device and I go, all right, what's actually like remotely available to me? There's only two services, in which the HTTP daemon and then the UPnP SOAP service. The UPnP SOAP service, like I said, I fuzzed it up and down left and right. I wasn't really finding anything. So I was like, all right, let's go to the HTTP daemon. And what I discovered was a lot of dirty code. And by dirty code, I mean this, like, there was a lot of things that you did not see on the front end. There was a lot of API endpoints that are not available that you could see on the front end at all. If you go to like 182.168.1.1, you could look everywhere. You're not going to find these endpoints at all. Mm-hmm. They're deep in the binary. So when I started seeing these, like, I originally disclosed, I think it was like 10 vulnerabilities to Belkin through the ZDI program back in, I think it was like 2014. And 2014, 2015, I think it was 2015, yes. And the problem was these were post-authentication command injection vulnerabilities. And there was one comment made by a coworker of mine, and he was like, man, if you could just bypass authentication, that would be amazing. And so I moved away from the device for a little bit, but that comment still lurked in the back of my head. So I went back and I was like, all right, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to get around this. And so after analyzing every single endpoint, there was one endpoint that did not require authentication, which was form set language. And when I was looking at the assembly, I saw, hey, if I don't provide any attributes for this one parameter that it's trying to parse, it will go to this error. And this error routine is super vulnerable. It just picks up a parameter called web page, and it passes this to sprintf. And I was like, oh, wow, awesome, stack buffer overflow. So I triggered the vuln, I verified it. And then from there, I had to cross-compile GDB and all that stuff. And I put everything onto Praetorian's GitHub because I just want everyone to have it. I really don't care where it is, as long as people can get it. So from there, it took me about 6 hours to craft the exploit because it was my very first MIPS exploit. So I wanted to make sure I was doing it reliably and all that good stuff, blah, blah, blah. So I found that. And then from there, I started looking at the login routine. And I go, all right, how does it know when somebody has logged in? How does it keep their session? And I saw that it was just reading one little file. And if that file existed, it would take the MAC address of it and put it into a trust zone, essentially. So you don't need to know the password. You just need to be able to write a file with your MAC address into it. So I was like, all right, cool. So now I can chain these two. I can do the buffer overflow, get a shell, and then I can write this little file and then bypass authentication. So I was like, all right, cool. But then DEF CON was coming up, right? And so I had to think. I was like, well, what more can I do? Like, what more damage can I do? Because I really want to win like some prizes at the 0-day contest that they had. So I started thinking about it, and I started looking at some network traffic, and I was like, there's no cross-site request forgery. There's no tokens at all being used. There's nothing special. It's just pure basic HTTP, super simple. So I was like, all right, so now I can do a cross-site request forgery that will exploit the buffer overflow. Awesome. So now I can get this behind a net. So from there, lately it's taken even further by abusing hard-coded DNS names. So you don't even have to know the IP address of the device that you're attacking at all. You just all right, set my destination to belkin.wx. The person who is getting attacked, their browser or their internal network will resolve it and forward the attack to the device and pop it. So it was kind of a combination of like just feeling unfinished from my first vulns that I found, and just more determination. That's really what brought it down, and that's why I just attacked it. I attacked it once. I felt like it was incomplete. Came back, and now I destroyed it. So I'm going to take a baseball bat to it soon.
Okay. Very nice. So there was a lot going on to get to that point. So you did some fuzzing on the HTTP. So why was it running UPnP if it was in its default configuration? Obviously, it hadn't been set up to that point, right?
Well, a lot of these devices have UPnP and stuff enabled. So you have like services, maybe games or whatever, that can send a quick quick packet to the device saying, I need these ports open or whatever, and it'll do it.
Yeah.
So that's why that service is on there. It's just for opening ports and doing dynamic rules on the fly. That's why it's really there. It's not really anything special. Okay. So that's a default. You'll see that in a lot of devices. If you sit on your network and you open Wireshark and you just type in filter like UDP or even like contents equals M search or whatever, you'll see it. You'll see tons of M searches going. M searches is UPnP SOAP. So you'll see a bunch of M searches, and then from there, if you send your own, you should get a notify back with a URL, and that URL contains the XML for all the available actions you can do. But yeah, it's on every device. There's nothing special you have to set up.
Very nice. Okay.
How did the sprintf help you? I mean, that's just copying from
but
one variable to another, right?
Yeah, so the problem was the destination was a stack buffer, and the stack buffer was like 90 something bytes, and sprintf is just like start copy. It's not going to stop until it hits a null byte. Mm-hmm. So my stream that I was providing, which was the source, was 300 bytes being copied into a 98 byte whatever stack buffer. Mm-hmm. So from there, I'm overriding like return addresses and all that good stuff. So that's where the damage comes into play.
Okay. So on the exploit DB website, because this is not the first place that it was dropped, but it says buffer overflow via cross-site request forgery. Now, how is the buffer overflow caused by the cross-site request forgery? Maybe you could explain what the cross-site request forgery portion is on that.
Yeah. So if you look at the bottom of the code, it's kind of hacky, but there's all the JavaScript that I put in there, and there's a class, or you can call it an object. I really don't care. It's XML HTTP helper or something like that. Let me look at the code. I'm not a JavaScript developer. Yeah, XML HTTP request. Mm-hmm. So essentially with that object, you can make like get requests, post requests. Those are the only two requests you can essentially make to a web page. So the original vulnerability was a post request to that form set language, and you had to provide it the web page equals for the parameter, and then like 300 days or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So since I could just do that, if I did it just raw, that's fine, but I could have a web browser do the same thing. So the cross-site request forgery works like this. Your browser will evaluate the JavaScript that my script writes. And then once it evaluates it, it'll then make a post request to the vulnerable endpoint and exploit it. So that's just how it works. I'm making the web browser do the dirty work instead of relying on just a Python script.
Okay. So this is something you found, I'm assuming, at like 3 a.m. after gobs and gobs of Mountain Dew, and you're like, yes!
Yeah, it was kind of funny. So I do most of my research, maybe just like a bunch of other people at night. I think that's when I usually get most of my like awesome stuff done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just, in that mood. I was like, you know what, this is just incomplete. I really have to go back and just finish what I started. And that's when I started looking, and I always rock out to like either, lately it's been like music from Mr. Robot or the Hacker soundtrack. It's pretty stereotypical, but it puts me in the mood. And I started looking. And then when I found that endpoint, I was like, oh my God, yes. And then from there, I I don't stop at just a crash. I have to take it all the way to code exec. I just have to. I need to prove that it is code exec.
Mm-hmm.
So I found the crash and I was like, oh man, this is awesome. And I think I was up till 4:30 in the morning. And then I finally, when I got the reverse shell and it was working, I rebooted the machine. I turned it on and off, the router, just to make sure it was reliable. And it was. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. But I also had to be at work in like 3 hours. So
well, at that point, you're pretty much going to just, pull a 24 and, just run through.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Exactly.
So let's talk about how ret2libc, speaking of stack and heap, not knowing what that is, how did that help?
Yeah. So the very first thing was the binary itself. And there's something called a base address. It'll just load in this virtual memory space every time. The base address contained a null byte. And like I said, in sprintf will stop if a null byte is there. So a null byte is our bad character. We can't have those. So,
as a hacker, you can't have them, right?
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. All right. So the base address had a null byte. Sorry about that. Had a null byte. So I was like, all right, I can't really jump back into it. The only way I can jump back into the binary is to do a partial overwrite. But that only gets me one chance to do something. And there was nothing inside the binary I could reuse like that. So what I did was I actually connected to the UART interface, the hardware interface, so I can get a shell.
Sure.
And I just padded the proc maps, the memory maps for that process over and over again. I saw that the libraries didn't shift, but it was really odd because randomized VA space was set to 2. And that says randomize the location of every imported library. So essentially ASLR was broken on this device. And so I was like, great. So libc started at a base that was not null. So I was like, great. So I can just jump back into libc, and there's tons of gadgets in libc, like tons of gadgets. So the binary itself was useless. I couldn't jump back into that. But I could jump back to libc since there was no null bytes for the base address, and there's tons and tons of gadgets. So that's what I essentially use. So all the inside my nodes, I say gadget 1, gadget 2, gadget 3. That's all within libc.
Okay. All right. So you found this, and it was fairly well done, and you've written up a POC for it. Mm-hmm. When did you decide to contact Belkin? Was this something you was like, well, screw it, I'll just drop it out on full disk or something? Or
no, yeah, it's kind of funny. When I first found the issue, I contacted them the next day because I own the device and I just want to help them make a better product. Like I'm not going around gunslinging, trying to raise an ego. When I find something, I'm going to report it. So I disclosed it to Belkin the next day, and I didn't hear a response for a while. So I emailed them again with the same information, just with the title saying like second attempt. Still nothing. Mm-hmm. Sorry. About I think like 2 weeks later, I forgot. It's on the timeline there. It was about some time later.
Yeah, it was 2 months and then another month.
Yeah, and then so I emailed them again saying that I'm going to just drop this. I'm going to OD you guys. Like you guys are not responding. I'm trying to do right, so I'm just going to OD you. So they responded immediately, and they said our email system has been broken. Our email system's been broken, which is why we couldn't respond to you, and we want another 90-day extension. So I was like, all right. I'm really like upset at this point. I'm like, they're kind of like mishandling this. And so I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt. I go, all right, I'll give you 90 more days, making this 180 days now. Mm-hmm. So half a year. So I try to do right, all that good stuff. Essentially what went down was they dropped the ball on it, and 90-day extension was up. And I'm not going to listen to them going, can I have another 90 days? So I didn't even ask them. I just said, screw it. I'm going to go on exploit DB and just post it there. So, I actually talked to Belkin right after I did that. and they explained the situation to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation was this: it's out of their control with this particular device. Actually, for these, I think it's for the actual branded devices, but I'm not 100% sure. But I know this particular device. It's known as a ODM or other device. It's manufactured by another company. Essentially, it's outsourced. It's an outsourced device manufacturer. I don't know if that's the right, what it is, but so he essentially told me that the developers over there sat on it. And they can't push them with a rod to say, hey, like, get this going. So it was out of their control, and the developers, the outsourced developers, just sat on it and didn't care. So what was interesting, though, was they notified me about their Linksys brand, which was kind of fun because I thought that was Cisco, but I guess something happened. But they told me that their average turnaround time for Linksys-based bugs is 30 days. Mm-hmm. So they actually sent me their latest and greatest Linksys AC 1900 or something like that. And they said, like, yeah, man, if you find anything, like, feel free to report it. But this is yours to keep because, we don't really offer anything. But, feel free to keep this. If you find any bugs, we'll patch it within 30 days. So that was really nice of them. But you just have to be careful with the lower quality stuff, I guess. This was a home device. Mm-hmm. So, so that was essentially what went down. It was just a different manufacturer was in play, and they just didn't have any direct control over them, which is why the issue happened.
So Belkin has did they have a website? Or did they have an email like bugs@, or security @ or something? Did you have to just email webmaster @ and hope for the best?
No, this is actually kind of funny. So when I first disclosed my bugs through the ZDI program back in 2014, they actually didn't have any kind of way to contact or report vulns. Mm-hmm. So ZDI, like those guys are amazing. Actually went through the trouble of actually getting to a contact, and that inspired them to make a security reporting page. Okay. So there is a security reporting page with a PGP key. The only downfall is that I actually notified them of this. They haven't updated it since they put it up back in 2014. Everything's still the same, but all the thanks and everything it's been the same since 2014.
Okay.
So, but yeah, they do have a page. It's not really updated.
Yeah. So the ODMs, this is not something you said that this was packaged by Belkin, but the inside used I would assume
something.
Yeah. Well, when I was back with OpenBSD, you could buy like a Buffalo wireless card, but had a Raylink chip or an Atheros chip inside. So They just put a pretty packaging on front, slapped a sticker on it, and sold it as a Buffalo or a Belkin or whatever. So This really affects more than just Belkin devices. It affects anything that has that chipset, right? Or that firmware version.
Not entirely. It affects everything that uses that HTTP daemon binary. So that HTTP daemon is particularly built just for these devices. Okay. Because all the APIs are hard coded into the binary itself. It's nothing dynamic where it's like, oh, these web pages will take care of it. No, it's actually hard coded in C. So I would say I haven't tried it because I don't have them, but I would say a lot of the other Belkin home devices are most likely vulnerable as well. I just haven't been able to verify it.
Okay.
And also, I'm not going to shift through hundreds and hundreds of different devices' codes because I just don't have the capacity at this time to do that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
So, what part of this Belkin device was the actual part that had the buffer overflow and the ASLR issues?
The ASLR is the whole device. So the buffer overflow was in the HTTP daemon because doing a post to /go form set language is actually handled by the binary itself. So the binary itself would just handle and parse everything. So the vulnerability was essentially in just the HTTP daemon itself. So that's all.
Okay. Is this you said that this was for mostly, low level, cheap devices, but would this HTTP daemon possibly be used in other embedded devices?
Yeah, that's the thing. Possibly, my money is on other Belkin routers as well. I just don't know if it's in anything else because you'll see a lot of manufacturers. They'll use the same type of like daemon. In this case, it was BOA, or they'll use BusyBox or whatever.
BusyBox,
but they'll program their own stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this one had a modified version of BOA, and that it could be used many places, but it was custom tailored. That's the thing. It's a custom tailored binary, so it could be copy and pasted across their Belkin line.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know, but I don't think it's going to be in other like D-Link or anything like that. I highly doubt that.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's possible. I just don't know.
All right. So is this the first time you've ever disclosed anything to a company about a vulnerability that you found?
No. God, this is probably, I don't even know now. Number 15, 20, I don't know. It's just so many now that I've disclosed. I just don't really count anymore.
So is the experience different with every company? I mean, you've done 15 or so, but has it always been with the same company, or have you used others?
Yeah, it's been, there's definitely a mixed range for sure. Like back in, I think also 2015, I disclosed a bug to Steam. I was playing around with the in-home streaming protocol and saw that I could cause some memory corruption, but at the time I wasn't able to get it to code exec. So I just label it as denial of service, but it was persistent. I could run this small little script, and with just 7 bytes, I could crash your Steam client over and over and over and over. So you'll never be able to use Steam, which is kind of dumb. Mm-hmm. But I was like, let me just report it. It's kind of a silly issue, but I'll just report it anyways. And their turnaround time was super fast. It was I think 2 days. So, some companies are just super fast, super awesome to work with versus some companies just don't have the power because, there's another influence in the chain or whatever. So Steam was great to work with. And I'm just glad that they didn't suspend my account or anything,
Yeah. Well, I mean, for them, a denial of service would make news because everybody complains if there's any kind of issues with Steam. A denial of service for them would be worse than, say, remote code exec or something like that. That's profit loss for them if they have any kind of issues like that.
Yeah, I was living. I had a roommate at the time, and he was a big, PC gamer as well. And when I first found the vuln, I tried it on him, and he knocked on my door. He goes, "Hey man, Steam's just not loading anymore," and it just randomly stopped. What happened? And I was like, "Oh, cool, that actually works." And he was like, "Man, really? You're messing with me now?" I was like, "Sorry, dude. I just had to be really sure." So, yeah, it was kind of a silly bug, but it made Steam completely useless.
Mm. So did they offer do you do this kind of disclosure for the hopes that there will be a reward at the end or
no?
So okay.
No, I just it's funny. I had an interview today, and they asked me why I do this, and it kind of sounds like a drug addict's perspective, you can say, but there's a huge rush for me in this. Whenever I find a vuln, my adrenaline spikes. My heart races, and I have to go make some coffee, and I have to sit down and complete it. So I'm always chasing that rush. So that's why I'm always looking at software, looking at embedded devices. I really don't care. I'll pick a target, and I'm I'm going to find something inside of you. So I'm literally chasing a rush. And so disclosing it is just whatever. The rush is over. So here's the bug. So that's typically the workflow is, I'm looking to find something. All of a sudden I find something, my adrenaline and everything spikes through the roof. I'm super excited. And now I have, complete exploit code that's working. The rush is now dying. The novelty is over. So now it's time to pass it to the client or to the vendor or whatever. So that's usually the workflow. It sounds kind of weird, but that's literally how it is.
Yeah.
Throw 2 hours of sleep in there and the next day, right?
Yeah, if I talk to my doctor about my sleep pattern, he'll probably cry a little bit. It's my sleep is so out of whack. I'll go to bed 3-4 in the morning, and since you discussed earlier, I'm fun employed. I'll wake up 8 or 9, and then maybe I'll take a nap in the afternoon. I'm all over the place, man.
Yeah. Nice. So, what was So we've talked about the disclosure. We've talked about how Belkin handled it, and really it was kind of out of their control because they have to pass any vulnerabilities they have up to, the third party in this case. So it was a third party vulnerability issue. Did you try reaching out to their third party after they had told you, hey, we tried contacting whoever it was and they sat on it? Did you try reaching out to them instead?
There's literally curtains behind that, so I have no idea who the third manufacturer is.
Yeah. Okay. Because I was wondering if they would, I'd imagine they probably don't have a bug program or a page with which to email or anything like that. It's probably somewhere overseas. So
yeah, most likely.
Yeah. So, let's say that you have a company that makes something and you don't have a bug bounty program. In your opinion, because you've submitted to a number of places before, what would be a good first step for a company if they wanted to have a way to disclose vulnerabilities to people? Because it seems like we hear stories about, someone like yourself goes to a company, hey, I've got a vulnerability, and all of a sudden the lawyers come in. And I would say that's not a good way to start.
Yeah, for sure. Like if that happened to me, I would just release everything to the wild and say, all right, if you're already going to come after me, Yeah. But that's the wrong type of mentality and behaviors to have in this field. So first things first, if someone's reporting an issue to you, don't take it as a threat. Don't take it as offensive. Just be appreciative because we're not breaking your software. There's that quote by Holly Graceful that goes, what was it? We're not breaking your software. We're showing that your software is already broken in the first place. So the thing is though, like when we do this stuff, we spend a lot of time into this, right? Like we spend maybe hours, days, weeks, whatever it takes, right? So if we're reporting something to you, we're showing that, hey, like we actually took the time, but we want to do right? And also we'll root cause the issue. Like what's the actual root cause? What's causing the vulnerability? What's a good way to mitigate it? Et cetera. So first things first is to have an email address that has some sort of encryption to it, like a PGP, GPG key. Because if we're disclosing a vulnerability to you, we're going to have proof of concept code and all that good stuff. And it has to be encrypted because if that gets leaked out into the wrong hands, kind of like we saw with the NSA shadow brokers leak, stuff can go haywire, right?
Sure.
So first things first, have a secure way of, communicating, whether it be in, PGP or whatever you want to use. Just make sure it's secure, encrypted, and go back and forth. People like Jesse Irwin and stuff could probably help out with better suggestions, but that's just mine, right off the bat. And make it shown that this is for security reports, like security at your company, whatever.com, is a good way to start. Because having to go through the help desk way, which I've done before, it's not good. And a lot of those guys get super offensive or think you're trying to social engineer them. And going out to Twitter is even worse because then you have the public eye. So what I've done before is gone on LinkedIn and looked up who's the head of security or whatever, and I'll just ping them directly saying, hey, I have an O-Day against you guys. I'm trying to disclose it so you guys can patch it so that other people are safe. How can I do this? And I hate doing that because it's so tedious. So like I said, like first things first, just have a simple email or PGP or some sort of communication so you can talk to researchers. But if you start threatening stuff, that's the wrong way to go. And you're essentially going to just, kind of crash and burn at that point, in my opinion. Yeah. So have some sort of page, make it easily accessible. Like if I went in Google and typed in your company's security report, it should pop up. I should not have to crawl your webpage sitemap in order to find this. Make it easy to find, especially on Google. Make it, easy to use, and also have a support staff that actually knows what's going on. Because if I report a vulnerability and through your program and the person on the other end doesn't know what I'm talking about or anything else, then it's very frustrating. And I've been through that too, where I've had to actually hold somebody's hand who called themselves a security person on the other side. And it's super frustrating. And a lot of people will tend to rage quit at that point. Yeah. So there's a lot of practices, but you have to be kind of open-minded and straight, open-minded and just be accepting. Like, don't get upset. Don't do any of the normal like fight or flight reflexes. Just work with the people because we're trying to work with you. That's the whole point of this. Me coming to you is me saying, hey, I'm trying to work with you with this issue I found. Let's fix this together. Mm-hmm. If you just come after me, then, I'm just going to stick up my middle finger and, do as much damage. But I don't want to do that. And nobody wants to do that in this field at all. So that's basically, it's almost like just use common sense. That's basically what it comes down to. Just be nice. Don't be a jerk. And that goes for both parties, right? The researcher as well. Nobody wants to deal with a jerk. It doesn't matter who you are. So just be nice, be polite. Also try to see the other people's views. If you ever worked in a company that develops firmware or any kind of enterprise company that has to push out updates, you have to know their chain cycle as well. As a researcher, like what is their chain cycle? What is their build cycle like? What is the QA process like? Mm-hmm. All these things come into play. Yeah. Like no one's going to just bend over backwards and have a team of like 20 people work until midnight because of your little issue.
Yep.
It's not realistic. So, but the thing is though, as a researcher, you should also set some firm rules. Like, after 90 days or after 60 days, set a deadline. And, make sure the communication's open and just don't be a jerk on either end. So that to me, out of everything I think everything I've said there, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, would be the perfect, disclosure process at all. Because for me, I'm not chasing bounties. I'm really not. If there's prize money, that's cool, but that's not my drive. So like, there's a lot of things, but just, there's fundamentals. It's be nice, make your stuff really easy to access and really easy to communicate with. Make sure that people that the researchers are talking to are on the same page, and don't miscommunicate the issue up the chain, because that's how you get failed patches and such, when you have miscommunication up the chain. Mm-hmm. So that's really just about it. That's as much as I can say about that subject.
Sure.
Well, okay, here's a question. What if the researcher starts talking about they want money right away?
So extortion.
Well, that's such a
you're trying to do right. You've got the security report page. You're open about it. You've got somebody to answer the phone, answer the emails, whatever comes through. And then all of a sudden, like you said, that there's extortion come into play. So do you still, as a as a manufacturer, try to work with the researcher and try to come to terms with them, or do you kind of shut the door and say, give me your best shot?
So it really depends on the tone and also where the research is coming from, right? Like there's a lot of researchers that really depend on their production of vulnerabilities as an income, right? So sometimes, yes, some people do want some sort of collateral. Mm-hmm. And it's great to have collateral because I will be honest, if I go on BugCrowd or HackerOne, I filter out the people who do just kudos. Mm-hmm. So yeah, but if somebody's just coming to you saying, I want money for this, or I'm going to ODay you, that's extortion. But at the same time, you can be like, well, we can't offer money, but maybe in the future we can do something, or I don't know, you can try to work with them. But if they're just a jerk, they're going to, jerks will be jerks, So it's kind of a hard one to say. It will depend from situation to situation, person to person. So you can do your best, but if people are jerks, then people are going to be jerks, and you can't really do much about that.
So I've got a Bob story here that so Bob had a person email him and said, hey, there's a problem with something on your site. And that's as generic as something got. I mean, it was like, hey, you have blah on your site. How much money am I going to get if I disclose this to you? So Bob went back to his superiors and said, hey, what do we do? So, Bob spent a couple days looking at how he could, get a hold of, this person. Email accounts were made because Bob's company didn't have anything at the time to respond to this officially. As a matter of fact, the email came in over a support channel, and the support channel was smart enough to say, hey, Bob's team, what do you think? Which was good.
Mm-hmm.
They actually didn't, just, balk on it.
Yep.
We create, so we created the, I can't do the Bob thing. It's stupid. So we went ahead and we created an account, and we reached out to the guy, and, we had a PGP, we set up everything. We said, hey, thanks for reaching out to us. Here's a PGP key if you want to reply back to us. We don't have a bug bounty right now, but we're working on that. If you'd like to discuss more of what was going on, we're open for communication. We never heard back from the guy.
See, and like that right there, you're gonna have to call people out. Like that's why I'm a big advocate of my whole like make POCs great again. It's basically like it's basically POC or GTFO, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, you're just calling them out on their shenanigans, and they're going back into a corner. Yep. So you did everything right there. So yeah, like I said, in a nutshell, people will be, jerks will be jerks.
Yeah. Well, it's a fairly complex website, so I'm almost certain that there's probably something there that even scanning with numerous resources, you're going to find something if you fuzz something long enough. If you're looking long enough and hard enough, you're going to find something. So we weren't not surprised by that issue, but it was like the first thing he said was, and we say he because it came from a Gmail account. So when we asked for a PGP, he was going to have to actually come from a more legitimate account because Gmail is not supported by, doesn't support, PGP or anything in that case. So, once we reached out to him and called his bluff, he or she didn't have anything to stand on, I would imagine, or maybe he didn't think it was worth his time to follow through with this because all we could give him was kudos at this point because this was not the first time that we've run into this issue where somebody just dropped something on us generically and ran. It would have been nice if he'd have at least showed us a screenshot of something, but he didn't give us anything. He just said, hey, you have, blah on your website. How much is it worth to you? And it was really off-putting, and I don't know if the person had ever done that before with other people, but maybe it's like ransomware or something, like, hey, give me $500 or I'll, own you. And once you give them the $500, they either don't have anything or what they have is not useful for them.
Yeah, like the best analogy I can come up with that, it'd be like me coming to your house, picking your front door, and saying, "Hey, your front door can be picked. Give me $500 or else I won't do it again." That's kind of like I said, a poor way to resolve it. Like whenever I've approached companies that don't have bug bounty programs that I found like basic cross-site scripting or whatever you want on their website, right? And yeah, it gets a bit nerve-wracking when I'm like, all right, I'm going to disclose this. But I usually say here's a screenshot or here's a proof of concept.
Sure.
That's the way it should go. Like some people get so, I don't know how to say, if it's like, I really don't know. It's almost like, this is mine and only mine. I will not share with anybody unless I'm paid for it.
Yeah. And
I don't know, like, this is me talking, me as me. And I just think that's just backwards thinking. That's completely backwards.
Yeah.
Like if you're trying to actually help people, then you should actually do it. If you're trying to monetize in the moment and just capitalize, then you're just a jerk. But that's just my opinion. You could be a really good jerk, but still a jerk.
So did Belkin ask you to sign an NDA at any time at all?
Oh, it was funny. So they actually sent me one NDA, and I completely inverted all the wording on it and sent it back, and they had no problem with it. So yeah. I don't know. They may have and just had no problem. But yeah, there was an NDA for the device I got. But, I flipped everything that said I cannot talk to I can talk. So based on the NDA that I sent, everything should be gravy.
Okay. Wow.
So, yeah. But yeah, no, like I said, with just the vulns, the NDA was just for the Linksys device. Mm-hmm. But the vulns themselves, no. There wasn't any NDA that was sent to me or anything like that. But like, I just try to do right, like I try to put myself in the client's shoes. Like, what if I developed this, right? What if this was my product? So I'm trying to do right. Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Cool. Mr. Betcher, do you have any other questions? I've got one left, but it's more of a generic question.
No, I just wanted to harp on what you said about, make sure that you have a plan when somebody does come to your company. Yeah. To try and disclose a vuln, that you have a process in place for that. Sure. And it's something everybody should at least think about, talk about with leadership, and have that documented somewhere, that this is how we're going to go about it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, just to add a little bit, like, having a process is great as well. Like, it's very important, but you also have to make sure you're ready to filter out noisy issues. Kind of like, people coming to you, I have RCE on your box. All right, what's the POC? No. Give me $300 and then I'll give you the POC. Yeah. And it's like, all right, that's just noise. Yep. So also having a process that's in place to filter out, I would say, I call it noise, but whatever you want, false submissions or whatever you have. So that's another thing to be wary of because of your experience.
Do people sometimes say, or companies, when they're approached, oh, sorry, don't talk to us, talk to Bug Crowd and they'll work with us, or we have a vendor for that, blah, 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 go talk to them?
I'm not sure, but
does it ever, I don't know, does it ever work that way?
I think I've heard of that before, where a person just didn't know that they had a bug bounty system and was like, hey, I'm trying to disclose this vuln, and the vendor will be like, hey, we actually work through Bug Crowd or HackerOne or what have you, so you can disclose the process through there. And yeah, I've heard of that before, and that's totally acceptable.
Cool. Yeah, so if people wanted to learn to do what you do, what is a good way to start? I know you mentioned the Smash the Stack Wargaming, which I found online here, smashthestack.org. There's several different war games online.
Yeah, the particular one, so like in security, there's so many different aspects of security, right? Like information, physical, whatever you have. I just liked binary exploitation. That's just what I like. Okay. So if to do what I did, I guess I just went on what's known as the IO section, and on Smash the Stack, that's actually migrated away to Net Garage. It's like IO Net Garage. So it's called for input output for memory stuff. Mm-hmm. So I just went on there, and I would just sit down for hours every day, or even like maybe not every day, maybe like 4 days, 5 days out of a week, but a significant amount of time, and just force myself to learn it, because I don't want to get all philosophical or whatever, but I believe everything in life boils down to two things. It boils down to time and consistency. So if you put in a lot of time and you're just consistent, like, you do the work and you're just pushing yourself harder and harder and harder, you will grow and you will learn. Like when I first started, I looked at assembly and I was like, what am I looking at? I have no idea what I'm looking at. So then I dissected it one by one. All right, what is the MOV instruction? And just Googled it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how I just started. That's exactly what I just did. I just put down the time and energy, kept doing it. And then once I started learning how to do this stuff on war game stuff, like, simulated environments, I just looked around me and go, all right, what do I physically own? Like, what have I bought in? All right, let's pick one of these and just start attacking it and see what we can find. And that's exactly what I did. You can go home. I tell this in my talks. I'm like, you can go home, open up your router, or even if you want to get into embedded devices like Goodwill. I go to Goodwill sometimes because you can get routers for $3, $2. So if you break it, there's no big deal. So like, I would just say, if you're really into security, you really want to get into it, you can do a lot of self-study, but also make friends in the field. Being able to bounce ideas or even having a slight mentor to ask questions to is extremely valuable. Yeah. And there's a lot of what I call facts in this field, like bypassing DEP, bypassing ASLR. These type of things are just facts. So if I can teach somebody these facts and they actually understand it, then the way they're going to become a better researcher is their perspective of the world and how they solve problems. So it's literally just, I would say, just to go back. Sorry, I'm kind of like losing my thoughts. Start on like a war game server if you want, or just stick with it. Pick something, stick with it. War game server, a language, whatever you have it, just stick with it over and over again. Learn it inside out. You want to be really familiar with what you're looking at, like super, super familiar. That's the only way you're going to get better at it. And then from there, make friends. If there's a local security meetup in your town, like we have here in Austin, like the AHA group, go to those things and meet people. But also, you have to be humble, or at least in my opinion, like, be nice. Everyone there's willing to work with each other, as long as there's, no one with an ego going, oh, I'm the best around. No one wants to work with that guy. Yeah. So make friends, be a sponge. That's all I can say. Like, this field is ever evolving, and like with me, I'm always trying to learn, because like there's always something new to learn every day. So it's just being consistent, push yourself, reach out when needed. If you're absolutely stuck, reach out, go on Twitter, go whatever. Twitter has a huge security presence. Oh, yeah. Just be like, hey, I'm trying to do X, Y, and Z. I'm stuck on Z or whatever. Like, can someone help me out? Yeah, I will take time to help you out, because that's awesome. You're trying to do exactly what I love to do. So, that's basically that's how I see the keys to success. Like, being passionate, being consistent, putting in the time, making new friends. And also, when you learn something new that you want to share it, like give back to the community. That's what I've been doing. Like, I'm not anyone special or anything like that, but I like teaching people things that I learned. It's just my personality type. So all those things together, I just think, it will make you unstoppable at that point. It's just time. The only factor is just time at that point. So just keep with it. And yeah, feel free to reach out. We're all human, we're not robots. Like we may pretend to be robots and such, but we all have our times where we want to flip the table. We second guess ourselves going, is this the right field for me? We all go through that. But if you just reach out, or if you maybe take a step back, it'll all fall into line. But just make sure you're constantly pushing yourself, not too hard, but you want to challenge yourself, because that's how you grow. So that's just it. That's just how I see it. It's plain as simple as that.
Nice. And these hackers like at AHA, they may seem like they're not approachable or whatever. If you just say, well, these guys are robots, they're not interested in what I have to say, because they're just at a different level than I am. I'm from experience, the guys at the Lockpit Village and Longhorn Lockpickers, the AHA, these guys are highly approachable. I mean, I just go up, talk to them, and it seems like they're generally interested in what I have to say. And if I'm speaking their language, like they're really open to offering suggestions, helping you out, things like that. And it's just a good feeling when if you have a question, you can just walk up to these guys and say, hey, I've got this, I'm trying to do this. Have you ever seen that before? And if they don't know the answer, then they can point you to someone who would.
Yeah, for sure. Like, for example, you also have to realize, because I suffer through this as well, is imposter syndrome, right? The fear of everyone knows more than you. And that's another thing that drives me as well. But you also have to realize that not everyone knows everything all the time. Just because they're a senior level doesn't mean they're an expert in the subject that you're researching. So for example, when I showed my router stuff at AHA, I had a lot of the, really well-known guys come up to me and was like, wow, that was really badass. Like, how did you do that? I'm like, are you like kidding me? Like, are you like, messing with me? But, don't think that you're a noob forever. Like, we're all noobs, if you don't think you're a noob, you're asking yourself the wrong questions. So, we're always growing, always expanding, but the most important thing is just to leave the ego at the door. Because, you can learn from people, but people can also learn from you. So it's all about collaboration, leaving the ego at the door, and just having a good time with it. So, that's, it sounds really simple and easy, but that's just how I see it. And that's what I've been doing, and it's been working. So, nice. So stay humble, stay thirsty for knowledge, and Just keep asking the right questions. Like, at first, when I first met these guys, I was a little intimidated about like, a few years ago. But, if you're, able to maybe like talk to them one-on-one without the whole group around, then, you'll start to realize like, hey, this is actually just another human, another person, not some grand master kung fu like legend, type of thing. So yeah. So, not everyone is hostile. You do have your bad apples. That's with every profession.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely have noticed that in the past few years, especially on Twitter. There's definitely people you can reach out to, and that's why I reached out to you, as a matter of fact. So let's get that started. So if people wanted to get a hold of you on Twitter or elsewhere, how would they do that?
So my DMs are open. So right now it's a little bombarded because of me, going off to my next, adventure of my job journey or whatever. Mm-hmm. But, I've had people ask me like, hey, like, this instruction doesn't make sense to me or whatever. And so I'll sit down and be like, all right, well, what's confusing you? So my Twitter is the best way to get in touch with me because I check it religiously. My email, I check maybe once every few hours. But my Twitter is usually once an hour. So my DMs are open. I just ask that you don't abuse it. Yeah. But yeah, like I always say, there's no dumb questions at all. We all started somewhere. But at the end of the discussion, if you learn something new, then my job feels like it's done. But I also ask that you also pass it on, pay it forward and just share that knowledge. Because also another way to validate that you actually know your stuff is to teach it. Yeah. If you can't teach it, you don't know it. So it's always good to teach other people. So you're also growing in that aspect. But yeah, Twitter's the best way to get in touch with me.
Okay, and that's at b1ack0wl, which is B1ack0wl.
Right? Yeah. Someone actually had the word black owl on Twitter, and I was like, oh man. So I just changed, some numbers around. So that's how that came about.
Right on. Well, thank you for coming on. I wanted to talk to you about the Belkin thing, but I'm glad we got to discuss the community aspects of InfoSec. And I'm sure there's people out there who are like, man, I want to get involved with this. So it's I think it's really important to talk about that and bring that message out every once in a while. So I'm glad you were able to get here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
Right on, Mr. Betcher. How would people get a hold of you if they wanted to?
Same as Black Owl, right? I'm on Twitter. My handle is at BetcherPwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. And my DMs are open as well. So, yeah, reach out.
Very cool. So the official BreakSec podcast is at BreakSec, BRAKESEC. You can follow me personally on Twitter. I'm at Brian Brake, BRYANBRAKE. You can DM me, but if I don't know the answer, usually I end up trying to Google it or finding somebody that I know will be able to help you with that. I may not know a lot, but I'm a facilitator. I guess that's another way of doing it. I can help you find the answer. I'd be a resource in that respect. So you can find our podcast on RSS link, www.breakingsecurity, that's BRAKEING security.org/RSS. Actually, it's .com, so it's breakingsecurity.com/RSS. We're on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. We have a LinkedIn group. We have a Patreon. If you found value in hearing Mr. the Black Owl talk today about Belkin and responsible disclosure and how he managed to pop those boxes, please feel free to leave us a little something over there in the tip jar. I'd like to thank Mr. Fernando for supporting us at the $2 level. You can give us as much as $1 or up to $10. I don't know why you'd give us $10, but anything helps. It helps offset any costs that we get with Libsyn, and it's just a nice little something. We end up giving most or all of it back to like somebody like Hackers Charity. So, Mr. Betcher, Mr. Black Owl, are you going to be at DerbyCon or anything in the next few weeks? Are you going to do any speaking?
Yeah, unfortunately, I won't be at DerbyCon. I'll be at GerCon, I believe, which is like the beginning of October.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be there. But after that, I don't have any plans because I'm putting together trainings for next year.
Okay.
Speaking was fun. It was, my first year actually getting accepted to a lot of conferences after a few years of submitting. So it was actually a lot of fun to be able to do that. But like I said, I want to push myself a little bit further. I'm like, all right, let's do trainings now. But I do have one question for you, Brian, before we wrap this up. You said your website was breakingsecurity.com?
Yeah, BRAKEING security.com.
Okay, awesome. And so if I find an issue, is it okay to report this to you?
You will probably need to contact Libsyn support for that. Because
right.
I am the Belkin of the podcast world. I just use what is packaged and given to me.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'll have to be careful then.
Yes, please. Please be very careful. They're actually fairly they'll respond quickly if they find something. So you can either hit them up on Twitter. They have a Twitter too. So
okay, cool.
Yeah. So Mr. Betcher, by the time this podcast comes out, you and I will be in Louisville in about 4 days. I mean, if I put this out on the 18th, we'll be in Louisville at DerbyCon on the 22nd. So that's going to be awesome, sir. It'll be great to see you.
Yeah. After what? Last year, right?
Yeah. It's been a whole year. Yeah. I hope to fix that. I want to go to DFear Austin next year if that's possible in like June or something. So we'll see how that goes. So
cool, man.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was it for Breaking Down Security this week. I hope everybody has a great week, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.